Ocho.
Definitely got a good voice. So let's move on to the top 5. So maybe if you could just talk about 5 books, maybe not top 5 books, but 5 books that you think is important that you would recommend to anyone who's watching right now.
Okay, so I think it's good. I know you narrowing it down to 5 is always really interesting. So Good to Great. Mm-hmm. That's a Jim Collins book. It's kind of one of those books that talk to you a little bit about how, if you think about what the good to great businesses have, businesses that can get from good to great, what do they have in common? Not necessarily if you do this, you'll be great, but what do they have in common? And he just studies businesses that have had exponential growth. It was something they made me study my master's. That was a really, really good book. I learned a lot about things, a lot about stuff during that. Why the Best of the Best? This is one of the most recent books I read by Kevin Eastman. Kevin Eastman is a speaker, and he's a guy that coached Kevin Garnett on their championship team with Doc Rivers, coached LeBron, he speaks to loads of CEOs. He's one of the best kind of speakers, one of the top speakers that are out there. His book really breaks down in a structural way how keywords can impact everything you do when you look around the concept of that word. And you have to challenge yourself to understand what that word and what those terms mean to you. And the most powerful words, that's kind of how he's framed it, but it's a look at his career and the things he's learned, and it's a very, very good book. I'm going to go with a book by a guy named William Bridges. It's called Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes. So this was another book I read for my master's, and I haven't reread it, but this is the kind of book that, if I'm being honest, it really taught me a lot about managing change. Like, a lot of people fear change, but in this text, it really helped me to understand that, like, this concept of change is inevitable, progress is optional. Yeah. So if you don't learn how to manage change, you're going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine talked about Tommy. I think Tommy Sandler was saying to me, like, one of the things that's interesting is we didn't grow up with this social media construct, but it's here. It ain't going anywhere. So part of who we are now has to take that into consideration. Whether it's today, whether it's next week, whether it's a month from now, whether it's a year from now, if you are going to be at the top of your industry, which is, again, what my goal is, you have to take that into consideration. So I think that idea of how we manage change, and change can be difficult for everybody, and how you help others manage change was a big piece of it. Okay, I'm going to give
before you go to your 4th book, one thing I wanted to say about change is the only thing in the universe that is constant. That's what I want to say. But go on.
It's true. It's good. Okay, the next book I'm going to give you, because it has such an impact on me recently, is a book called The One Thing. Can't remember the author, but the book is called The One Thing. Mm-hmm. And for an example, The One Thing and Why the Best of the Best I gave to my wife to read, because she loves reading too. So I read that this year during the season. And basically the concept of it is what is the one thing you can do that will make everything else irrelevant or not necessary?
That's a layered, complex question, bro.
Exactly. And it takes you through that layered, complex question. And it just really challenges you to think about, okay, what's the one thing you're doing today to exact change?
So your 5th book?
My 5th book is Emotional Intelligence. By, I think it's Jeff Goldman writes that. Mm-hmm. And listen, I don't know about other people, but I can honestly say that reading this book changed my life. I'm not a guy that likes fiction. That's not a big thing for me. I don't mind like Rich Dad Poor Dad, some books like that are quite interesting.
Yeah.
But the actual, like, I like fact. I feel like I'm learning in that moment, and that's important to me. But this book, Emotional Intelligence, totally changed the way I approach the way I deal with other human beings, because it changed having me think about how my emotions are impacting everything I do, and whether if I'm trying to get something out of you, which is for you, I have to keep my emotions in check, because they are going to stop me doing that. There's lots of books that do it in different ways. Chimp Paradox is a decent one. But Emotional Intelligence, for me personally, is one of those books that once I read it, it talked about like studies and how they worked and the difference that they learned from these studies. It looked at like serial killers and the things you learn in this book, and it just straight away, it had me, like we said before, the first thing is you have to understand yourself. So it helped me understand these are barriers to what I want to do and what I'm doing. And from there, I've given this book to multiple people. I give it out as a gift at times to teams. I've given it to a good friend as a birthday gift or Christmas gift. It's a book that changed me as a leader. That's why they made me read it and do my Master of Leadership. And it's massive. That was one of the things I read that just at the time my team went 17-1 in high school.